Am I the asshole for refusing to walk my friend home and setting boundaries after she rejected me? I've always been the kind of person who puts others first, especially when it comes to my closest friends. For the past 3 years, Fiona has been my best friend. We've shared everything: inside jokes, late night talks, weekend adventures, and so much more. I've been there for her through breakups, family issues, and all the chaos life throws at you in your 20s. But now I'm starting to wonder if I've been wrong all along. It started a few months ago when I realized my feelings for Fiona were no longer platonic. At first, I tried to dismiss them, chalking it up to a passing phase or just admiration for someone I'd grown so close to. But every time she smiled at me, every time she leaned on my shoulder during a movie night, it felt like a thread in the fabric of our friendship was being pulled loose. I told myself it was better to preserve what we had than risk everything by admitting the truth. But as the weeks went by, that unspoken love became harder to bear, an ache I carried with me everywhere I went. Finally, I reached a breaking point. I couldn't hold it in anymore. One night, I invited her over for dinner. I went out of my way to make her favorite meal, dim the lights, and play the playlist I knew she loved. It wasn't exactly a romantic setup, but it was as close as I dared to get without tipping my hand too early. She laughed and joked with me all night, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. By the time we'd reached dessert, my hands were trembling. "Fiona," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked up from her plate, her smile warm and disarming. It made what I was about to say even harder. "I need to tell you something,"
What's up?
she asked, her tone light, oblivious. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. "I care about you," I began, my words measured but shaky. "More than as a friend." Her smile faltered and she froze, her fork hovering midair. For a split second, I saw something in her eyes. Surprise, maybe even a flicker of hope. But then she set her fork down, carefully, deliberately. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating.
Michael,
She said finally, her voice soft.
I don't know what to say.
I leaned forward, desperate to close the widening chasm between us. "Just be honest," I urged. "Do you feel the same way?" She shook her head slowly, her eyes brimming with regret.
I love you, but not like that.
She said, each word a dagger to my chest.
You're my best friend. I don't want to lose that.
Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, knocking the air out of my lungs. I tried to keep my face neutral to hide the storm of emotions raging inside me. I forced a smile, nodding as though her response didn't shatter me. "I understand," I said, my voice barely steady. But deep down, I was crushed. It felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me, leaving me suspended in free fall. Still, I didn't want to lose her. She meant too much to me. So I made a promise to myself. I'd move on. I'd bury my feelings again, deeper this time, and keep being her friend, because losing her completely wasn't an option I could bear. The thing is, moving on was harder than I thought. I started noticing how much I did for Fiona, things I didn't do for anyone else. I'd drop everything to help her with a flat tire, rearrange my schedule to support her, listen to her vent for hours about her exes, and walk her home after every party to make sure she was safe. I realized I had been treating her like a priority in my life, like someone I wanted to build something with, even though she'd made it clear she didn't see me that way. Every time she leaned on me, it felt bittersweet. On one hand, I was glad she trusted me, but on the other, it was a constant reminder of what I couldn't have. It's hard to sit there, hearing someone you care about talk about their heartbreaks, knowing you're not even in the running to be the person who makes them happy. I thought I could handle it, but it started to feel like every kind gesture, every moment spent supporting her, was chipping away at my self-worth. Over time, I started pulling back, not to hurt her, but to protect myself. It wasn't immediate. I didn't wake up one day and decide to stop being her friend. It was gradual. I stopped texting her as often, stopped volunteering to help with every little thing. I even started saying no when she asked me for favors. And honestly, it felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was carrying the emotional labor of our friendship alone. But then came the night that changed everything. We were out with our group of friends at a bar. Fiona had a few too many drinks and stumbled over to me.
Michael, can you walk me home?
She slurred, leaning heavily on me. I hesitated. For years, I would have said yes without a second thought. It was instinct. Protecting Fiona had become second nature to me. But this time, something inside me froze. I couldn't keep doing this, not when it felt so one-sided. You should call an Uber, I said, my voice firmer than I intended. She blinked, clearly taken aback.
What? Why? You always walk me home.
She said, her tone a mixture of confusion and disbelief. Because I can't do this anymore, Fiona, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. Months of bottled-up frustration boiled over. You can't keep expecting me to act like your boyfriend when you don't see me that way. Her face twisted in shock, and she swayed slightly, steadying herself on the table.
So that's what this is about? You're punishing me because I don't want to date you?
I shook my head, the accusation stinging more than I cared to admit. It's not punishment, I shot back, my voice rising. It's boundaries. I can't keep giving you everything when I get nothing in return. It's not fair to me. Her eyes widened, glistening with the beginnings of tears.
I thought we were friends.
She said, her voice cracking.
Friends look out for each other.
Friends don't take advantage of each other, I replied, my tone sharper than I intended. I felt the words hanging in the air, heavy and irreversible. You don't see it, but you've been leaning on me for everything, and it's exhausting. I need to take care of myself for once. She stared at me, stunned into silence. Around us, our friends were starting to notice the tension. Someone called her name, but she didn't turn. She just stood there, looking at me like I was a stranger. Finally, she took a step back, shaking her head.
Fine.
She said, her voice trembling.
I'll call an Uber.
She fumbled with her phone, her hands unsteady, and I felt a pang of guilt twist in my chest. But I stayed rooted to the spot, telling myself this was for the best. It had to be. Now our friend group is split. Some of them think I'm in the right, saying, Fiona can't expect me to act like her safety net when she's made it clear we'll never be more than friends. Others think I'm the asshole, accusing me of being manipulative and selfish. One friend even said I'm using my feelings as leverage, which isn't how I see it at all. In the days since that argument, I've replayed the scene over and over in my head, analyzing every word, every look, every moment that led up to it. I remember the look on Fiona's face, hurt, betrayed, and maybe even a little disbelieving. It's not how I wanted things to go, and it's definitely not the outcome I envisioned when I finally decided to stand up for myself. I thought setting boundaries would be a way to protect myself, a way to reclaim some sense of control over my own emotions. But now I'm left wondering if I've just destroyed a friendship that meant everything to me. At the same time, I can't ignore the relief I've felt in the aftermath. Not being tied to the constant expectations, the unspoken yet always present obligations, has been freeing in a way I didn't fully expect. For the first time in years, I've been focusing on myself, on my own needs, and it feels good. But every time I think of Fiona, that relief is tinged with guilt. Did I go too far? Was there a way to set boundaries without letting things escalate to the point where we're barely speaking? I've also heard whispers from some of our friends, and they're not easy to ignore. Fiona feels abandoned, humiliated. She's told them I've turned my back on her after years of friendship, painting me as someone who's petty and vindictive. Hearing that stings, especially because it's not how I see it at all. But maybe that's the problem. I've been so focused on how I feel, on what I need, that I haven't fully considered how my actions have impacted her. Part of me wonders if I should just swallow my pride, apologize, and try to go back to how things were. Maybe it's not too late to salvage what's left of our friendship. But another part of me, the part that's finally started to heal, knows that going back would only reopen old wounds and set me back to where I was before. I'd be stuck in the same cycle of giving and giving while getting nothing in return, and I'm not sure I can handle that anymore. So now I'm stuck, torn between doing what feels right for me and doing what might make things right with Fiona. I don't know if there's a solution where we both come out okay, and that's why I'm here, asking strangers on the internet. Am I the asshole for refusing to walk her home and setting boundaries after being rejected?